So good. What church are you at in Sheffield?
I'm at Wesley Hall in Crooks. I don't know
Okay, sure.
if you know Crooks at all.
Vaguely.
It's Uni of territory. It's basically, it's actually smack next door to St Thomas STC.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a huge church.
Yeah. We know St Thomas Crooks.
Yeah, we're smack next door. With a green building next door.
We're there for Fusion training days. We used to be when we were there in person. Used to be there quite a lot.
It's funny you mentioned Fusion. So I went this morning to the Andrew Fulks one on what I wish I knew about youth work. And it's tips. So he did 5 tips, and number 3 was like where you going, what you're doing, and he mentioned about year 3 having a plan for an exit strategy for young people, and he mentioned Fusion. So I was going to ask about that. So
nice.
Yeah, because Wesley Hall, it's quite a small congregation, and it's an even smaller youth group. So my remit is the secondary school kids, and there's 6 of us, 6 young people, and me and whoever volunteers along. But one of them, it's a smack down the middle group where 3 are, one's in year 13, 2 are in year 11, and the other 3 are year 7, and year 9. Sure. So it's fun on a Wednesday night trying to get everyone involved, but I do really want to support the eldest going to uni, because I'm 99% sure he's going as of September, because he's a smart lad. He's smarter than me. But yeah, so I was just wondering if we could talk about that, really.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. We love that. I'll wait just a few more minutes. There's 20 more people who haven't been assigned yet, just to see if someone gets joined in. But
absolutely fine.
Quick icebreaker to get started, because I like throwing icebreakers back at youth workers. It's like a taste of your own medicine.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
If you were a kitchen utensil, what would you be?
Oh, I've got it already.
Oh, go on.
I mean, I am a youth worker, so you think about these things. I don't really know what to call it, but it's like that silicon scraper thing. So it gets like everything out of the bowl.
Spatula.
Is that yours?
That's Sam Brown's go-to.
That's mine.
Oh, maybe it's my favourite utensil. My fiance is like, oh, you use that thing all the time. I was like, yeah, but it's so good.
It does everything.
Yeah, it does everything.
Maybe it's a Ches thing. People from Ches.
I was about to say, is this the Ches connection?
I think it is, yeah.
So yeah, I'd be that. If not, I'd be a wooden spoon. Just, dependable, always there.
Yeah, you can kind of do a similar thing with that. You can't get right into the corners.
Exactly. So that's why I go for the silicon.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you two?
I approve.
Well, other than silicon scraper
spatula again. For me, yeah.
Sam's all about that. I would be, tongs. When you barbecue.
Oh, chow.
And you can click them together, and also, if you want, you can use one of it kind of to spatulate.
No, I prefer spatulate, if I'm honest.
Spatulate. You can use to spatulate. I think that's probably the term, but it is hard to pinpoint.
So whereabouts are you from, if you don't mind me asking? Sorry, I know where Sam's from.
Yeah, well, I'm from Hampshire, but I was at uni in York.
Okay.
And yeah, so studied in York, and I'm based there now. Although during lockdown, I'm actually back down in Hampshire, so it's weird. I'm a northeast team, but I'm working remotely from where I grew up in the south.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think we'll get going.
Sure.
We had one in the morning session as well, so we can just chat as well.
No, wonderful. I was going to ask if it could be a bit more open, but yeah, you've answered that question already, so brilliant.
So yeah, my name's Peter, and I work for a student mission organisation called Fusion, who you obviously have heard about a little bit, but we can go a bit more into depth of what we do specifically. So Fusion exists basically to help students find hope in Jesus and home in the local church at uni. I've also recently, like I said, graduated from uni, and before going to uni, I was a youth work intern. So my role with Fusion is to be working with youth workers specifically, such as yourself, to prepare a future generation of students for their time at university by getting basically training and resources into your hands to help kind of equip you and equip your own people. I'm also joined by, as you have noticed, my colleague Sam, who works for Fusion as well. Sam, why don't you say what you do as well?
Yeah, a similar role to Peter. I spend my time, I live in Reading now, and spend time with church leaders and student workers across London and Reading, and resource them to do really good student work. And yeah, also the student pastor of a church here in Reading. So do that 2 days a week. So basically, I'm the person that you're sending your kids to, or your teenagers to. So this is why I'm here.
Yeah,
essentially, we wanted to warn you that this is the hands that they're going into.
Yeah, I'm sorry not to butt in. I'm assuming you're going to answer this if you don't already. But so say if I, let's call my young person Dave. Let's say so Dave's told me, right, I've been accepted to Uni of Manchester. Could I go to one of you guys and say, he's going to Manchester, he's a Methodist, help. Find me someone, please, sort of thing. Would that work?
Yeah. Well, so you're welcome to chat with me. I can talk you through what kind of training, like preparation for uni, we can get into their hands, or that I can work with you to provide for them, and chat you through ways to help them find a great church for them at the other end, at the university they go to. So yeah, if they went to the University of Chester, I can help them find a church in Chester.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, thank you.
So yeah, coming to this seminar, you're maybe obviously like struck by the question of why it's important to prepare young people. And this is a little bit of what we're going to what I wanted to kind of cover. So I think it's important to recognize what young people are feeling right now and why helping them prepare for the next stage of their lives is particularly crucial in kind of this moment. Secondly, I want to talk about what the difference preparing young people for university has really made to the student world and to the local church. We've got some really sweet stats on that.
Big fan of a stat.
Big fan of a stat. And then lastly, how best you can prepare young people. So that's looking at the practical things that we can kind of provide for you to encourage them.
Wonderful.
So starting off with where young people are right now, first I wanted to know, how do you think you would feel if you were about to make the biggest decision of your life, or one of the biggest decisions of your life, and something happened that kind of completely flipped it on its head? Because that's exactly what 17 and 18-year-olds are experiencing right now. There's a huge feeling of ambiguity, of loss, lack of clarity about where their life direction is going. And yet the pressures of this season of life remain. It's basically, it's UCAS time. It's time to do those applications, time to revise alongside that, get ready for exams. And this kind of means it's time to figure out what they're going to do after college or after school, and by extension, what they want to do with the rest of their lives. Now, this is obviously a big decision at the best of times, let alone when there's kind of a global pandemic occurring all around us. So what I thought would be a helpful exercise is to think back to what you wanted to do or what you wanted to be when you left school or college. So like, yeah, what were your dreams, what were your like ambitions for what you wanted to do after college?
Mine were very wide ranging. I started sixth form wanting to be an engineer, then realised I hated physics and maths. So, that's kind of out of there. Then sort of refocused into sport and PE. So I was thinking about becoming a PE teacher. Left school kind of wanting to be a PE teacher. So I did sport development with coaching at uni, which was sort of getting people involved in sport who don't want to. After
Where did you go, Sean?
Say again, sorry.
Where did you go?
School.
Oh, no, for uni.
Oh, uni, sorry, Hallam. I went Hallam.
Nice.
Yeah. I must admit, one of the other reasons I've come to this is I'm an absolute home bird. I live 15 minutes away from my mum and dad, so I'm not far away at all. I went to Hallam for uni, so I stayed at home second and third year.
Yeah.
I've never lived more than an hour away from my mum and dad, and that's when I did my gap year in the middle of Doncaster. So that was still only just over an hour away. So I went to Hallam for that reason. It's close to home, close to family, friends, can still go to my own church, that kind of thing. I got to uni, wanted to be a PE teacher, and so I did sport development with coaching, which could lead me into that pathway. But then finished uni, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Finished uni, got a 2-1. I was pretty happy with that. And then, of all things, I was sat with my fiance, who's actually downstairs on another, joined up on another conference thing. And she saw a job opening for a 10-hour-a-week youth worker at Crooks in Wesley Hall and Crooks, and jumped at the chance. And so I started that, and then I ended up I'm also the admin worker for the Centenary Project. I'm here with 2 hats on today, basically. But yeah, it was that's kind of what got me into youth work, and I'm loving it so far. But yeah, it was so up in the air, and I'm still not sure what I want to do long term. Like, I'd love to do this for 4 or 5 more years, but I don't know what the future holds really. But that's kind of the exciting thing, I suppose, isn't it? Really. Nice. But yeah, sorry, I might not have answered your question.
No,
that was my little life story from 18.
Yeah. Well, can you see what's shared?
Yeah. So, what I really wanted to do, I suppose, was wanted to work in sport development. So, like working for the local government. So, like working for Yorkshire Sport Foundation as a sport development officer in such and such, or working for like the FA as a, that's the long term goal.
So good.
Yeah, exactly. Or like working for the ECB, that'd be great. And and my plans have changed where I know I want to work with young people. I know I want to like help and develop. And if religion was in there, that's great. I suppose religion and sport can switch out for each other, really. So I'm doing something I want to do, but it's different varieties, either the sports strand or the religion strand. And I suppose standing in the way of what I wanted to do was opportunities, really. I mean, Sheffield is great, but most of the sport governing bodies are London way, and I don't really want to live in London. So,
Not blame you, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I could maybe do it for a year tops, but, I'm settling down. I'm hoping to get married in the summer. I don't want to give that up at all. I'm happy here, and I want to live in Sheffield long term.
Yeah, really good. Well, yeah, that was really good to hear. And those barriers that you mentioned of like actually geographical barriers were something that I hadn't really thought of, or opportunity barriers. So what do you think are the barriers for young people following their calling now? So maybe think specifically about young people you've got in your youth group. What are the barriers they're facing to follow what they want to do after college or uni?
If I was to give something straight off the bat, I would probably think it was similar things of like home bird. So I know they're quite, they're like the locality. Because the unis they have mentioned, I think they've got family in those places. So not wanting to be too far away from family. Finance is always an issue. Like, I'm not saying they're poor. I'm not saying that. But as in going to uni now in the modern day, it's $9,000 a year plus, let's say, 5 and a bit grand for living expenses. Where do you find that money from? Are you going to have crippling student loans in the future? It's all of that. So, yeah, straight off the bat, I would say that the home bird and the financials, it's so hard for young people now. I mean, I am a young person, so I'm only 24, but, financial is always the big one to me.
We've got a few kind of examples of what some kind of big picture pressures or barriers on young people are. First of which is kind of academic pressures. Sam, can I have the next slide?
Yes, you can.
Sorry, I didn't even think of academic. That's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, like academic pressures are like kind of wanting to do a subject that is quite academic, but also they might not feel like they're able to achieve at that academic level. Next would be societal pressures. So we all want kind of a job that is respected by society, that is kind of socially approved of. Peer pressure. Not only do we want it to be approved by society, we want it to be approved by our friends. We want to not be ashamed of telling our friends what we do for a job. Parental pressures, this can be a really big one. Whether it's parental pressures to do something in particular or to not do something, they can be really, really big. And then this is kind of off what you said, like economic pressures. It could be that they want a higher paying job, or they just want to go to uni, but there are economic pressures and barriers in place that prevent them from doing that. So there's a lot to think about there, and a lot to be kind of melted down in per person by specific young people, because it's different for everyone. But I thought I would give a bit of time to share what my kind of experience and my story of going to university was like, and what barriers were in place for my calling. So there's some fun pictures of me looking very cold and snow, and then when I had longer hair, cracking photos. But when I was in college, I was studying forensic sciences, electronics, and maths. But without knowing it, I was only studying those because I thought it was what I had to do. It was what I thought I had to study, because those were the subjects that I kind of were able to do at college. My parents were a chemical engineer and an aerospace metallurgy engineer. So both very highly educated, highly paid, universally recognized and important jobs. So I thought that I really ought to kind of follow the same path, do the same thing, and be in a job that was, high paying and accepted socially by everyone as important. I thought I needed a job that was socially respected and that my parents would approve of, and it would be impressive to my peers. But God has other plans, because God has plans for each and every one of us. He has plans for each and every young person, and he had different plans for me. God pointed me in the direction of theology through my youth worker at the time, called Struan McRoberts. He had studied theology himself at Glasgow, so I was able to speak to him about what studying theology was actually like. And it took a lot of convincing. It took a lot of time to convince my parents and my academic tutor at college that studying theology and applying for theology courses through UCAS was the right thing for me to do. Basically, I had to find courses that accepted me based on UCAS points rather than grades in specific subjects, because I didn't have the right subjects to study some theology courses. But now, 5 years later, I have a degree in Christian theology, and God's perfect placement has put me in a job that I love. It has made my parents very proud, and I am proud to tell my peers what I do. So young people have a calling. It might not always be obvious what it is. Mine really wasn't obvious to me at the time, but it is all about removing the barriers that they have in their lives. It is important to help them picture what they really want from their lives, what they want their lives to look like, and encourage them to resist the pressures that might hold them back from those. So the next thing, so that's all well and good to kind of hear, but what can we actually offer them as youth workers, or as kind of peers or parents, or basically anyone who's kind of trying to encourage them in this time? We can't make the decisions for our young people what they do at university or what they do with their lives. All we can do on that side of things is encourage them and share with them our own experiences in that. Yeah. So here's what we can offer them practically. Firstly, it is really important to show them how they can start university well. It's like a race. If you get off to a good start, you're on a good run.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but for me, moving from Hampshire to Yorkshire for university was the most stressful day and drive of my entire life so far. I had a wisdom tooth rupture during my drive. I pulled the front bumper off of my car while reversing into the accommodation car park. And worst of all, I did this all by myself because my parents were on holiday at the time. due to my moving week being moved forward 2 weeks, so they were not expecting to be needed that day. This was not a good start to university, and it was not a good first day. And there is so much going on in the minds of young people during this time, but starting university actually isn't all about that first moving day or about your first week. The whole of the first term or even the first year at university could be considered the start. So it's really, really best to be prepared for. So an example of what that might look like means being ready, encouraging them to be ready for university. And what are the do's and don'ts of their very first few weeks at uni? One great resource for this is our Students' Alphabet, which I have right here, which is essentially an A to Z guide on uni.
I was in tandem, that. Sorry. It was just, yeah, carry on.
Full of little nuggets of wisdom, everything from arrival to earplugs, getting enough sleep, accountability, budgeting, everything is kind of, there's something on it in this book.
Wonderful.
The next thing to be encouraging them is to be themselves at university.
Yeah.
Uni is a time for identity reinvention and discovery. Assist them in figuring out what parts of them they want to leave behind at college and what parts they want to kind of hold on to as they go into this next leg of life. The next thing about the start of university is encouraging them to be church. Get them stuck in with the church family at university. Their faith is in their own hands at this point. They can't be reminded by their parents to get out of bed for the 9 a.m. service anymore, which honestly, I found a church that did evening services to avoid that nightmare. But that was a big worry for me because I was like, I'm not going to get up on Sundays. And the last thing is to encourage them to be friends, because this is a time of their life where they are founding and growing friendships that will support and define their university experience, and to an extent define what they who they are when they come out of uni. So that is what and why we prepare young people to start uni for that kind of first few months or year. The second thing that that young people should be prepared for is university culture. University campuses and student life is like its very own ecosystem. Some areas of university culture are hard to explore and can be really, really challenging for Christian students. But these are also incredible opportunities for fun, friendship, and for sharing faith. If you can think back for a second to your time at university, what were the biggest challenges of university culture that you faced?
It was a strange one, really, because doing a sport course, there was, and not to bring stereotypes out, there was lots of lads, let's go out and get absolutely hammered, and but I was invited along, but I never felt that need to. I suppose it was because I was comfortable and confident in myself as a person, as you said, be yourself. But yeah, the big draws at uni for me, or my course mates felt, were gambling. There was a real student gambling problem amongst my course mates. I don't know if it was a wider Hallam thing or what, but yeah, gambling and drinking. I'm pretty sure there was drug use. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say, but again, I was lucky that sort of the clique I had didn't really get involved in that. But as you said, it's such a different world away. Yeah, and I don't know, what can I ask you two about what you undertook, what happened?
Yeah. I properly went rogue in my first year and was like, I'm gonna go to church and go to Christian Union and do all that stuff, but then also I think in my mind I was like, if I'm ever going to do it, I've got to do it now. So I kind of lived pretty hard for that first year, just with like drink and drugs as well. Like while still going to church, And it took a friend of mine at church called Beth, who was a bit older than me. She sat me down one day and was like, "What are you doing?" And I kind of I tried to answer her questions for like about an hour, I think, and I just ran out of answers. And came back that second year like, right, I've got to choose between one and the other, and I'll probably choose the one who made me, rather than going out and getting smashed. So yeah, from that point on was very different. And by that point as well, I moved into a house with Christians, which I found really I mean, it's different for everyone, but for me, that was definitely what I needed.
Yeah. One of my biggest challenges, honestly, was filling up my time too much. There was definitely, I felt a culture of try and do everything.
Yeah.
Was really, really on my mind. And I basically burnt out in my first year, and a bit in my second year, because I threw myself into lots of things which actually wasn't healthy for me, but I felt like it was the thing that was approved of. If I'd said to some groups that I was part of for societies, oh, I need some rest tonight, it would be, no, you don't. Come on, get ready. We're going out. I'm gonna go do this thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I really, really needed some rest. So that was a really big challenge for me. Was actually, I suppose to an extent, self kind of preservation, but also like actually like giving myself some time to rest. Yeah. So we've got some sweet stats here, which are really just hoping to paint a picture of what university culture might look like. Do bear in mind that these stats are 5 years old, and university culture really does change like a tide. So this might not be realistic today, but it paints a picture of what uni culture can look like. Yeah. So in 2016, 48% of students worried about their finances daily. Can definitely relate to that. Still, I'm not a student anymore. 36% of students never drank alcohol. 53% of students spent £20 a week on tea and coffee.
That is mind blowing to me.
I know this one too much because I had a Monzo budget pocket for coffee when I was at uni.
That is. Then
I'd pay a certain amount into it each week, so one, I wouldn't go over it, but also so that I had enough for coffee.
That's crazy to me. Then again, I think of most of the third year I spent in the library with my clique of my group, and there were some lads that every day at lunch they would buy a coffee and whatever the meal deal in the library was.
Yeah.
When there was a Tesco around the corner that was a meal deal that was a couple of quid cheaper, and if they'd have gone and done it at home, it'd have been a couple of quid cheaper again. It was anyway.
Yeah. 19% of students spent no time at all socializing. You think that's 20% almost.
Yeah.
Not having any social interaction, basically, is quite scary. I forgot to change this between sessions. I'm just going to read out. It says 55% of students spent 1 or 2 horse.
Oh, mate, I changed it for you.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It says hours.
You changed it on there. I've not changed it on my notes. I wrote horse instead of hours on mine.
Could have been worse.
Could have been worse.
I could have been very much worse.
But I spent 1 to 2 hours socializing a day. That's only half of the student population. 74% spent between 2 and 5 hours a day in lectures, and only 61% of students got enough sleep at night, with 40% not getting enough sleep. So like I said, that's a snapshot of what uni culture could look like, or what it did look like in 2016. But again, bear in mind that this was 5 years ago.
Yeah, 100%.
And the university culture changes a lot. For example, so much more can be said now on the mental health and well-being of students in respect to university culture. And that is why it is so important to be prepared, or be preparing young people for university culture, and to make them aware of what avenues they've got available to them for help when and if it comes to struggling with mental health, or again, struggling with any of these. There are places to reach out to. So that's why we prepare for university culture.
Yeah. And another thing, I don't know if you might have any stats on this, or it might be a bit too hard to work out. Do you know if there's much? I mean, there is anecdotally, but do you know if there's much difference between an ex-poly and a Russell group? So like your Hallam's versus your Uni Obs, Manchester versus Man Mets. I mean, because as I said, I went to an ex-poly, and that was brilliant for me and exactly what I needed. But the demographic of my course being majority first generation university students versus someone who may have gone to uni of being privately or grammar school educated. Do you have any knowledge of that, experience of that?
You'd know more about that, Sam, I think.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and something I've thought about a lot. I'm doing some study at the moment about student mission and student culture in the UK. And I wouldn't have the exact data to hand of what it looks like between red bricks and polys. I don't know. I think there is that stereotype though that because polys are handling more vocational specialised subjects that have lower entry requirements, you might see a slightly different culture at that kind of university than you might at, for say, a red brick institution, where its students have had to get very high grades to get in. Well, I think that's definitely fair to say.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of then affects what my thought has been on this is that if you were to like determine how much study someone puts in, like average student study hours per week at institutions in the across the country, you could plot it out on a graph and you'd be able to see where different universities are, and you'd be able to detect how the university culture changes the further you get up the curve.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely matters, and I think the thing it hinges on is how much are they studying, and then how much are they spending time doing other stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's not me just saying like the other stuff is just drinking or whatever. It could be anything. Like it could be pouring time into sports teams and other clubs, other opportunities. We'll come on to that a bit more later. But other opportunities. That's what I'm thinking about there.
Yeah.
No, of course. And again, if you don't mind answering the question, what unis did you two both go to? Sorry, I know you might have mentioned it.
So I went to St John, which was a previously a Church of England teacher training college, and then I guess became would that be a ex-poly?
Where was this? Sorry.
New York. York
Okay.
University. Yeah.
And then I went to the University of East Anglia, which was a new.
That's a poly, isn't it? I think, or was a poly?
No, it was a 1960s build. So in the 1960s, they built a lot of campus unis, and UEA was like the first of them. So built in the early 1960s, and so it's not like red brick, but it's also not a poly. So it's somewhere in between.
Okay. Cool.
Well, York St John's kind of weird as well because it's a lot older than University of York as a institution, but not in its current format because it's an 1803 founded institution, but it's become a university in 2008, 2005 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's an odd one.
No, thank you for that. Sorry, I keep derailing it, but
no. Because it's so few, we've got plenty of time to kind
of. Yeah, thank you.
Respect everything. So the third thing to be prepared for, or to be preparing young people for at university, is the vast ocean that is opportunities at university. And we've kind of spoken about that a little bit. To help make the most of university, it's good to break down the areas of student life, especially for Christian students. So helping young people to choose now how to engage with opportunities at university will have huge implications for their development at uni and for their growth and for the growth of student mission. So the three main key areas of life for Christian students are societies and clubs, study, and church family. We've got those up. So these might be self-explanatory, but I think it's worth going into them. Societies and clubs are wide-ranging at uni. I ended up actually being the captain of the Ultimate Frisbee team, as well as getting into Dungeons and Dragons because I'm really cool.
My brother does it, don't worry.
So does Sam. He did.
I do,
Regardless of what society or club your young people are drawn to, however, it is really, really good to get involved with at least one. I would suggest, for me at least, at most two was what I went for, because it can get overwhelming. It is an excellent opportunity for them to have fun, build great friendships, and to share faith with students who don't know Jesus yet.
Yeah.
I shared my faith with basically everyone in the Ultimate Frisbee team, because I was the captain, so I was the only one speaking. It was great.
I
Captive audience.
Baseball. Yeah, I was everything of the baseball team. You name it, I was probably in charge of it. So yeah, a lot of Jesus conversations were had, but
love that.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, not at all. Opportunities for study are also great, but it's important to help young people know how to do this well, and how to follow a biblical model of study. It is important to teach them how to be diligent and to take it seriously. A lot of people in their first year, at least, tend to fall out of that and not take their studying seriously, because your first year doesn't count to a lot of people, but actually it still does. You still need to achieve and hit targets. I know loads of people on my course that basically didn't give a flip in their first year, and had to resit it, and spent a whole another extra year on their university education, because they thought they could just waste their time. So take it seriously. It's important to identify how they work well. I actually work best with people around me because I get my energy from people. But my housemate, who's an introvert, hated working in the same room as me because he needed complete silence. So, it's worth figuring that out, and also being respectful of other people's work style. It's important to know how and when they should pace themselves with work. Sometimes it's time to kind of really, really graft, but sometimes it's time to kind of take a bit of a backseat, take a bit of relaxing time. And it's important to know how to work in and find a steady rhythm in work, of kind of what time you're putting into what aspect of your study. Finally, do you have any questions on that? Or?
No, so, well, sort of similar. So for societies and clubs, did either of you join your Christian society? So I joined the Cathsoc because I grew up Catholic and Catholic. So I only joined it in the third year, actually, but I did really appreciate that. But did either of you two join your Christian society, whatever it was called at unis?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was in the Christian Union in my first and second year. In my second year, I headed up the events coordinator role, basically.
Yeah, social sort of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. But then in my third year, I was really stuck into my local church. So I was serving a lot more there. So didn't feel like I had the capacity for my third year of my degree. My role was in church and the societies I was part of. Other than that, I was still involved where I could be, kind of going along occasionally, but I wasn't fully involved in my third year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was very involved. Did 3 years. All 3 years I was there, I served in this Christian Union. Did a year on the executive committee. Ran Alpha, which was great. Did that for a year, and then came off and just carried on serving in the Christian Union where they needed me. I did. I led prayer meetings, main meetings. We did a bit of sport, so I organised some of that as well.
Yeah.
I did loads of that, and I did radio society as well. I was a radio host for all 3 years too.
Pretty cool, actually.
I didn't know that about you, Sam.
Did you not? Oh, mate.
And it's more of a generic question that I ask all young Christians, more from my own experience and seeing how they got past that. So, being young, male, sporty, and going to church on a Sunday, I got a lot, and also being Catholic, I'm sure you can understand the jokes, but you know, I did get a lot of, it's not real, it's a load of rubbish. How did you get past that? I mean, I had it at uni as well, but luckily there was enough of a culture of, we're adults now, do it makes you happy. But you know, there's still the odd jive here and there. But how did you get past that? Did you experience that? How did you get past that? How can I sort of say to my young people, be proud of who you are, and you know, you're lovingly made, and you are a beautiful gift of God. You know, don't listen to that idiot over there. Like, how do I? Yeah. What else can I say to them, sort of thing?
I ended up drawing, because I'm very, very, very similar to that, Sean, of young sporty guy going to church, and the circles I'm being in, very laddish.
Yeah.
I ended up drawing a lot of strength and security from just seeing people like me at the church. So went along, and my church in Norwich, where I was, had a big sport ministry outreach focus. And so like there were lads in there, other young lads who just graduated, who kind of took me under their wing a bit and helped mentor me. And just for me, even knowing them was like enough. So any kind of comment that or anything that might have been like, that's not that great, I was able to rationalize it with, do you know what? These lads have experienced the same thing. They're still here. They're still in church. They're still living for Jesus. If I need to talk about this, I know exactly I can go and talk to them. So I think for me, it was just knowing people who looked like me, basically.
I think we'll get onto this later, but having a church family supporting and surrounding you is huge for dealing with, because that is an aspect of university culture as well. Quite kind of, you're being surrounded, but actually when you're in a church family, you've got that support, that network, and like you said, there's opportunities for discipleship and being discipled as well. I think for me it was different, because a lot of my course mates, because I did theology, a lot of them were either Christians, actually surprisingly few amount of them were Christians, or they were really interested in religion. So none of them were like, oh, God's not real, because they were all questioning. I think it's also, and this is a really hard thing to kind of have a mindset of, is when people are saying things like that, potentially quite hurtful things, they're coming from a place of potentially being hurt by religion, being hurt by church, or being hurt by or being kind of told that these things are true, like aren't true or are true about religion or about faith. So being kind of coming back to a heart of compassion, and coming back to the idea of what Jesus would actually think of these people.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. Because, as you said, Sam, appreciate. You hear it sometimes, and most of the time it's water off a duck's back. But
definitely,
sometimes it does really get to you, and it's not nice. And the young people that I know will be going to university, let's call him Dave. Really amazing lad, full of life. Great young person, really passionate, and I don't want the spark to go out of uni, because it is a melting pot, and you never know. He could turn up to a lecture and someone called. That's the last thing I want him to. Keep that same passion. So thank you for answering that.
I think moving. This is a good point to kind of move on to the last part of uni opportunities, which are the importance of the opportunity of being church family. The list of why getting young people ready for finding a church family at uni being so important is just really endless. There are so many opportunities. Like we already said, there's opportunities for discipleship and being discipled, opportunities for serving, for leading, for being missional, like outreach into the community and onto campus as well. there's opportunity to shape what a church community looks like as well. I think that's a really important thing. When you become part of a church community, even if as a student, you might only be there for 3 years, but you are a member of that community and you have a say in what that church looks like. And then there's so many more. So getting stuck into church was one of the best choices and best things I did at uni. I ended up actually serving too much and got called out on it. So that problem that I had with the culture of I need to do everything, that was the same with church for me.
Yeah.
But church was the only place where I got called out on it and actually got told you need to stop.
What was your nickname again? It was like Keen Bean Bolton.
Bean
Bolton.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Because I was keen to do everything. I was on the tech rota, on the welcome rota, on the speaking rota, youth, children. And then I ended up in my second through the third year, I led the hospitality team, which was probably the best job because it just meant making lots of coffee and getting snacks and cakes and things. It was really good.
There's worse things to be. I'm not saying addicted, but there's worse things that you could be addicted to.
I've literally got a big old pot of coffee here. I've got a kettle next to me.
Yeah.
Because the kitchen's too far. So when students know to prioritize church, they will find spiritual mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters to support and encourage them for living commissionally. Discipleship, teaching and pastoral care will be at the forefront of their lives if they prioritize church family at uni. Also, student culture, when you're a part of a church family, is so much easier to be confident in. You'll be surrounded by a community that is ready to support and hold you accountable. So that can come back. Yes, Sam.
That's me, being held accountable by the church family.
Yes. What are you doing? But that also comes back to what you were saying about those kind of maybe hard words to hear. That church family is where you find kind of a heart.
The sounding board as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Go on.
I was just going to say that's why preparing them for the opportunities of university, in my mind, especially church, is so important.
No, I agree, 100%. It's just something when you said about church family as well, and I hope that you two both have an answer for this. So, as I said at the start, I basically stayed at the same church. I would occasionally go to the cathedral in Sheffield rather than my home church, but 9 times out of 10, I was, going to the same church where my mum and my gran were. How did you sort of split the balance, or how did you, did you dip into one church and the other? Did you focus on how did you work that balance, for want of a better question?
Yeah, I'll quickly go through resources quickly.
No, yeah, of course.
Because my story of getting plugged into a church kind of comes off the back of one of those.
Okay, cool.
So we've taken a look at how young people might be feeling right now about going to university and deciding what to study. We've also seen aspects of university culture and where they're important to be prepared well for. But you might be thinking it's well and good to say what needs preparing for, but how do you actually teach them this?
Yeah.
These are 2 resources that I would highly, really recommend to invest in. It's investing in them, and it's investing in a couple of really solid resources. The first of which is the Link Up, our student Link Up box. Essentially, it's a 3-book bundle. We've already talked about one of them, which is the Student's Alphabet. Can't recommend this enough. Wisdom on so many levels. If I go quickly, you're getting quality time, how to library and loneliness, dissertation, drugs, budgeting, clubs, that kind of thing. There's so much to be talked about. The second thing is a book called Studentscape, which is a devotional guide to grounding yourself in faith and worship at university. So kind of real amazing faith stories, exercise, Bible Bible readings, Bible study, all around what student life is like. And then finally, student link-up sessions, which is our training booklet, basically, for young people going to university, how to prepare them for starting well, opportunities, culture, and legacy, which is something I've not talked about today. But legacy is how to leave kind of something behind when you go to university and when you leave university. It's about starting how you intend to finish, and doing things that you'll be proud of looking back on. So that's, if you get one of the books, it's this one. But I'd recommend getting the box, the full bundle, into the hands of every young person going to uni.
Sorry, not to brass tack. How much is that? Sorry.
So the books are £5 each, but the box is £10 for the 3 books.
Cool, wonderful. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. The second thing that I think is perfect for young people who are kind of worried about finding a church at uni is the Student Link Up app, which I can actually have on my phone here. I should have had this ready. Here we go. So the Student Link Up app is essentially a database of student-friendly churches around the country, and actually internationally now a little bit, of student-friendly churches at university cities. So if I put in, for example, York, which is where I went to uni, it will come up with the 2 campuses, which will appear as little blue dots.
Yeah.
And all of the orange dots are student-friendly churches. And if you click on one of those, so I've gone for Hope City Church, York, it'll tell you the service times, location, what they've got available for students. But the really amazing thing about this app is a messaging capability to message a student worker at that church, or whoever's responsible for kind of student missions or student ministry there. So I got this app before I went to university, having met a couple of guys who worked for Fusion on a Student Link Up stand, which is a stand we do at conferences and things around summer. So it was big church day out. I met 2 blokes there. They offered me the app, got it downloaded. And when I messaged, it turned out that one of the guys on the stand was a student worker in York. So he remembered exactly who I was. He remembered that I, at the time, had bright blue hair. And he was like, how are you getting on? How is it moving? Let's meet for a coffee or a drink or whatever. Met with him, chatted through it, felt so encouraged. I went along to try that church that Sunday, and I still go along 5 years later. So that app is, the app is free, and it is the best investment you can make. I hear a lot of young people saying, like, I don't have space on my phone. Literally delete Facebook and get this app instead. You'll be more benefited by it than Facebook.
So many memes on Facebook, though.
That's a good point. You gotta get it in browser.
Yeah, you get it in browser.
Good point, actually. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Kind of to your question, though, Sean, about what do you reckon then for going to one church or maybe trying out a few? We say as Fusion, when we talk to church leaders, to youth workers, whoever else, students really want to have found what their church is and have settled and committed there sometime in the first term that they arrive at university. That's not to say you can't then go and visit another church on another Sunday. I did that. I had a very good knack of going along to my mates' churches whenever they'd have like a bring and share lunch. So I used to go and do that, but there was definitely no doubt as to what my church was when I was a student. It was, well, I went every Sunday pretty much. I was serving on teams there. I was part of a small group there. So definitely had committed to that church by then. Doesn't matter if you commit to a church and then all of a sudden you think maybe actually this isn't right for me. Some people can end up in churches later than others. There's no exact formula, but if we're saying what probably works best for a student who's arriving in their first year, halfway through that first term, it'd be good to know what church yours is, because the beauty of the Student Link Up is you can shortlist churches and be like, right, the first 4 Sundays I'm here, I'm trying this church, this church, this church, and this church, and then I'll think about making a decision.
Yeah,
definitely. So these are two resources that I'd really love to get into your hands, so you can get them into the hands of that young person or young people in future who are going to uni. I'll drop my email in chat quickly. Please do kind of note that down. I don't know. I don't think chat saves beyond the.
Yeah, I've got to post it open because a few other things I noted down earlier. No, that's brilliant. And yeah, so useful because I think he has mentioned unis to me, but they're sort of quite spread across. And so, I will definitely tell him to download Link Up, student Link Up. But yeah, it's just different ways of reaching the conversation with him because they mentioned earlier, Andrew Fultz mentioned the sessions. So 4 sessions, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There we go. I won't necessarily subject the younger ones to the year 7 and 9. I don't think they'll get anything out of it.
You never know. They might be thinking really ahead.
Well, possibly the 9 actually, because he's like uber smart. But like if I took that top 3, so the 2 year 11s and a 13.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that is useful, or do you reckon just do it with the 13, or like can you get stuff out of it from a younger age? Is what
I think you can. So I've done a couple of things with basically year 12s. Year 11s, I think there's some important thing there because they're starting thinking about UCAS, basically their first term at college.
Yeah.
So I think there is stuff to be talked about then. I think most of it will apply to the year 13. But I am really of the mindset that you can't be prepped too early. It's one thing to kind of have in mind, have a bit of kind of like peace of mind about before all of the rest of getting ready for university starts.
Yeah.
I've actually led like a load of stuff with year 11s and 12s about calling without any year 13s there, which I think is fun.
And it's even just a really good way to start approaching the subject of university with them, because as you know, like post-18 plans can be a bit daunting. And even just doing a bit of like, hey, this is what university might be like for you, could be a really good chance to encourage them to start thinking seriously about it.
That's our website there as well. There's loads of other resources, which, if we had more time, I'd have to chat you through kind of everything that we can kind of offer. But also, if you're free for a call another time, I'd be happy to put a call in.
No, definitely. That is, something I would look into because, at the end of the day, I want my young people to be happy, and he seems really excited to go to uni. But I sort of did. So the session we just had on Wednesday was, is there anything you're nervous about? And bless him, he didn't say uni, but I think he was thinking it, and I could see across his face. He was like, it's a big, it's a really big step. I want to make him as comfortable as possible and as happy as possible. Just before it breaks out, what was the survey called again? The 2016 Sodexo one?
I don't know.
That's it.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
I think there is actually a more recent one as well.
That was
I
just
can't remember.
That was just what was in this.
No, that's fine. Absolutely fine. Yeah, just what
we were also reprinting.
Yeah, I've just put the new stats in that for our reprint. So if you buy this year, if you buy now, you'll get the old one. But if you wait a bit and then buy, you'll get the one with the brand spanking new stats that I've put in.
Updated some funny terminology as well, like
oh gosh,
the DVD box set we updated to Netflix.
I think it was written, wasn't it, like 10 years ago by some of our superiors, Peter, and they handed it to me, you, and another colleague. We're all the same age, to like run through and check it. And there was multiple things we were just like, just get rid of that, just fire that into the sun.
What's that order? You can't say that anymore.
Yeah. So when is the new one coming out then, roughly? As in, because I was gonna go and buy at the end of the day, but now I know you're updating.
I don't know when it'll be out.
I'd say most of it is still really, really relevant. So if you want to get it in your hands, I'd say it's still worth getting at the end of the day.
Okay.
Feel free to email me and I can get an invoice sent basically straight.
Yeah, I will get onto that next week.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, lads.
6 seconds.
You've answered everything.
Amen. I was going to pray. Thank you.
You're a legend, Sean.
Thank you, lads.
Amen.